Matthew J. Flynn. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure to be here, man.
So I think we're going to just jump straight into it. You're a human physiologist.
I am, yeah.
Now, I got confused when you first told me this about what a human physiologist is. So I don't know if you want to explain to everyone who's watching.
Yeah, sure. So a human physiologist, you usually get asked when you're in the profession, are you a doctor? Are you a nurse? Are you going to check my knee out for me? Like, are you a physio, basically? So we abbreviate it to phys rather than physio. But what a human physiologist will do is they'll generally deal with the internal organs and look at where some of the links are and how it's impacted by lifestyle. So, for example, human physiologists will help out with cardiology. They'll help out with lung function specialists. They'll help out with phlebotomy, taking people's bloods, analysing the bloods and helping them out. And then correlate it to a lot of lifestyle factors. So you could have someone come in clinic, they've got issues with their heart. It corresponds with some issues in their blood work. And then you work together for a lifestyle intervention. And generally there'll be a go-between between a lot of different professions. So say you'll work with a doctor and refer. You'll work with a physio if they've got injuries. You'll work with nurses and other individuals in like more A&E based practices.
Yeah.
Touch wood, you don't have to refer to there too often. But yeah, that's generally the part and parcel.
Yeah.
Generally be in a clinical setting, help with the analysis and help that person along their journey to improving their life.
It's quite like a niche career path to go down. Like, it's something you don't really hear about. You hear like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a surgeon, be a nurse, but you don't really hear that. So what got you into that career path?
Looking at career path, I guess I got to go full circle of when I was younger. So always been a sportsman, playing football, rugby, cricket, badminton, table tennis, swimming, whatever you name. I've probably done it growing up to the point where I didn't really care academically that much growing up. I wasn't too bothered by homework. I just wanted to kick a ball, chase things around, even to the point where as a man, you grow up, you start to meet girls. I didn't really care when I was younger. I just wanted to kick a ball. So that's generally how I grew up. That's what I wanted to do. Then it got to a point of like, okay, I'm not a professional footballer yet. What should I do with my life? And through inspirational figures growing up, say like PE teachers, people like that, you take a natural interest in things like PE and the interest of history and geography as well, but not more PE and biology, that sort of thing. So I was like, what do I do? Okay, I'll go to university. That's what my PE teacher done. So time to go to university. What do I do? Sports science. This has to be the natural pathway. Still thinking, should I be a PE teacher? Where do I go? I still didn't know. I still wasn't really taking it that seriously. So I went to uni, done sports science, specialised in the physiology side of things. So biomechanics, anatomy, human physiology, things like that. First year, I think I was just drunk the whole time. That's just what first year is. Second year, drunk and getting drunk abroad as well. So it's just part of university. I think there's social aspects. And then it was only third year that I started to really get into it. I was like, I'm actually enjoying the science side of things. Partially because I had to, because I needed to pass exams. I needed to do well. And that's when I found the interest in human physiology. Again, I didn't quite know where to go with it. So I was one of the fortunate ones. I attained a position as a health advisor in a central bank. And I was at graduation. I was like, I got this job in, helping out a bank with their people's health. So that was my first step into all things science. And with that came personal training as well. So I still am a qualified personal trainer. I just haven't personal trained in a very long time.
Yeah.
But that's where it all started. And while I was doing that for the year, I looked into the sciences a bit more and undertook further study. So I started a master's degree in sports medicine, and I also changed job into human physiology, which required clinical training and another master's degree. So I've gone from not really caring about education that much, wanting to kick a ball, to really caring about education to the point I decided to do 2 masters at the same time while changing job and trying to hold down a relationship. Pretty tough going. So went through all that, attained the position as a health and wellbeing physiologist, and worked in a private medical centre in London, just off Harley Street. And then, just went from strength to strength. Really enjoyed it, really flourished. To this day, I haven't missed bloods, as in like not got the bloods out of someone's arm in, I think, 7 years. So I'm pretty good at that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the squeamish stuff that maybe some others didn't. And I haven't looked back. So that was how I got into physiology. That's a roundabout way of saying it.
What was the most surprising thing that you learned about how a lifestyle can affect a certain part of your body internally?
I think just learning more about what stress is and the positives and negatives, because people hear stress and just think bad. We shouldn't have too much. But it's learning that there is an amount that is good. There is an amount that's going to push you beyond where you think you can go.
Yeah.
And you can really start to benefit from that. You can actually perform better with some stress. So you have what's called the inverted U theory. So it's like a pressure performance curve. So the more pressure you have, the more performance you're going to need. But there will come a point where it tails off, and then the stress or pressure is too much and performance decreases. Same way, if you have no pressure or no stress at all, the performance is low because the motivation's low. So there is like a sweet spot, and learning that and putting it into a clinical setting, working through with people, that was the thing I learned the most, is that it's pretty much applicable to everyone on planet Earth. It's just everyone's sweet spot is going to be slightly different.
Yeah. Do you think you can train that like a muscle, as it were? So your tolerance over a long period of time of being stressed, you're going to increase your stress tolerance to be in more stressful situations and perform to a higher ability.
I think it's definitely possible. I think the highest performers on planet Earth, whether it be Elon Musk, Bezos, these big company owners that are on record saying they're working 20-hour days and doing all this crazy stuff. Like it wasn't just overnight. They've built that tolerance up. And I think your everyday person, maybe some individuals listening, can actually take, some benefits from that and think, where am I at now and how would I want to get where I wanted to get? There needs to be a progressive overload of stress, similar to like training in the gym, the progressive overload techniques. It's the same with stress. However, the caveat being is that there's good stress and bad stress. So I think when people get married, it's a wonderful, amazing thing, but it's stressful.
Yeah.
Myself personally, the amount I fly abroad, it's a great, fun thing. Getting to the airport stressful. Is my taxi going to be late? Have I packed my passport? There's all these little stresses that build into it. So it's about being aware of an equilibrium of your natural baseline of stress levels and the good and the bad. And it's cumulative. So you might have loads of good stress in your life, but that little bit of bad stress can come in. It can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So it's about ensuring that your life is in order and that good stress, that you can actually mentally deal with it properly. If you're going on holiday, getting engaged and married, got a big project at work that you're benefiting from, maybe get a promotion. There's all these things that are good, and then you add in negatives that maybe you don't need. You're watching the media too much, the mainstream media. You're getting into arguments with friends late at night over text message. There's all these things that can build up, but you've already got that baseline of good stress that's elevated stress levels. So you don't want to overload too much would be, I guess, best advice looking at it.
Yeah, so I don't know if you found this when you were working with patients and stuff like that. I used to stress myself out for no apparent reason, just for the sake of it, and make a massive thing over something which is very small. And you probably see that a lot in your what do you tell your patients basically when you are seeing that?
It's multifaceted, so it depends on clinical results. So the advice would be governed primarily by some clinical results. So if there's certain blood results that are, in excess, or we're noticing things on the electrocardiogram, their ECG for their heart, there would need to be some interventions regardless of stress. But irrespective of that, if it's just a generalized case, then I would say you want to look at an individual's mindset and how they draw associations between different things. So I think stoicism is making a comeback. I've certainly seen it a lot on social media. So as someone who's believed that for a very long time, and I think it comes with an acceptance of competition. Say, like from sport, you lost the game. Why did you lose it? You take responsibility for certain actions that you had control over. If you were playing in a football team and you lost to the better team, there's a lot of times you can say, I lost to the better team, or the better man won. In individual sports, it's out of your control. And you can accept that and move on. Then we grow up, we get into the working world, and suddenly everything's our fault. We forget to look backwards and think, when I was a kid playing football, I just accepted it. There's nothing I could do to change that, that loss. I'll do better next time. I'll improve here. I'll analyze this part of my game and improve it. We're starting to lose that a bit in the modern world. We're hyper analytical of ourselves for the negatives and not looking at the positives. So the best advice I can give is it's from Epictetus, a famous Stoic philosopher, 2,000 years ago. There's things in your life you can control, and you put them here. You draw a line, and then there's all these other things you can't control. And that could be other people's thoughts, other people's actions, what they think of you, what they do to you, what they say about you. There's all these things you can't control. But there are things in your life you can control, and that's your thoughts and your actions. And once you start to just focus on the controllable factors, nothing bad happens. You just feel lighter, you feel more chilled out, more relaxed. And all this doesn't really matter. There's nothing you can do about it anyway. You just feel a bit more chilled. When something happens, you can look at it and go, okay, my thoughts and my actions, how can I couldn't affect it. Fine. Next. You can start to be a bit more methodical with it all. And that's certainly advice I bring in even into clinical practice over the years, is that, what are you in control of? Oh, this person didn't move in this project, and what about you? And then there is that realization moment for a lot of people of like, okay, there's nothing I could do there. Next.
Yeah.
And you can kind of just section it off a little bit. So
I find incredible how, especially like Marcus Aurelius, the Meditations, is so relevant in today's world, even though it was like 2,000 years ago. And if you carry that mindset of what is in that book, you are in a better position than a lot of people in the world from something which was written like 2,000 years ago. I find that mind blowing. It's just, crazy.
And the fact, let's talk about pressure. The guy was a Roman emperor in charge of one of the biggest empires the world's ever seen, and still had time to reflect and think, what am I in control of? Okay, my general's done this person's done this part of the empire. He's not there. He can't really control those conversations. So, it's great to reflect on some of the past. And I think even, top psychology circles are certainly bringing it up a little bit more. Even someone like the biblical stories of Dr. Jordan Peterson, there's a lot of the ancient or the old coming back. It's going full circle of like, okay, how can humans function better? And we've neglected it for a long time, I think.
Yeah, because it was like, I forgot what that cycle, you'll probably know what the cycle is, and then caffeine came along and ruined it all about like the day and night cycle and like how your body clock is going with that.
Yeah, so your cortisol circadian rhythms. So,
yes,
that's something that a lot of people don't harness. So essentially, a lot of people hear the word cortisol and think stress. There's the usual association, my cortisol's high, as in they're implying that they're stressed. Well, your cortisol will naturally be high in the morning anyway. It's what it does. It goes through a cycle. So every humanoid thing on the planet will go through a set rhythm, there or thereabouts. And the peak is in the morning. So where caffeine comes into it, the amount of times you hear a difference between I want a coffee and I need a coffee. So putting that essence on, I need it. You don't need it. You've got natural blood plasma cortisol, which is up in the morning. It's an energizing hormone. It lifts your heart rate, it lifts your blood pressure, gets you ready to hunt. As we're not that evolved from cavemen. It wasn't too long ago we had to go and hunt. So they're stimulating you, getting you ready for the day. So the first thing when you wake up, your blood plasma cortisol level's doing that. Why do you need a coffee? It will come down because it does fluctuate through the day. There's a good time to have it. So maybe put it off a little bit. So caffeine, a wonder drug to some people. A mistimed drug for others, perhaps. So if they're naturally going through high stressful moments, they're not controlling their mornings that well, the morning's being really essential. So you certainly see it in clinical practice, the individuals presenting more stress symptoms, their cortisol circadian rhythm is out of whack completely. And once you fix that through some lifestyle intervention, suddenly the ECG looks a bit better. Suddenly the blood results look a little bit better. They're functioning better with their partner. They're working more efficiently. There's a lot that will come down to just some quick lifestyle fixes. I live a different life now.
Would you say the levels are still going to be as high if you're waking up naturally, opposed to there's like a siren going off in your ear, your alarm's going off, and you're like, shit, like jumping out of bed?
I guess I could pose the question to you, but I could also reflect it as well. Have you ever woken up from an alarm feeling super groggy?
Yes.
Have you ever woken up from an alarm mid-dream?
Yes, that's a weird experience, yeah.
So you're at a different stage of your sleep cycles during both of those moments. So the most idealistic way to wake up would be sunlight. However, we're in the modern world. We just got to face facts that you can't always wake up to sunlight. So what to look at with your sleep cycles is how can you get the most out of them? So a lot of people focus on you need 8 hours sleep, you need 8 hours sleep, you need okay, what about the quality? It could be crap. You could have done everything you can to ruin your quality of sleep. With those sleep cycles, I'll try and draw it out the best I can. So you go from awake, then you go into what's called non-rapid eye movement 1. So that's your shallow sleep. So that's where you should be kind of waking up from on the reverse. Then you'll go into non-rapid eye movement 2, again, shallow sleep. Then adjacent to that is what's called REM, or rapid eye movement. That's your psychological repair. That's where the dreaming occurs. So when you woke up dreaming, you're probably in REM. It comes back, and that's part of a sleep cycle. It then goes down into non-rapid eye movement 3, deep sleep. And then the deepest sleep is non-rapid eye movement 4, the deep physiological repair. Say if you train in the gym a lot, you're going to need sufficient of that to repair the muscles properly, stimulate human growth hormone, not steroids, the naturally occurring one. Then it'll go back to 3, back to 2, and that's a cycle. So 2, REM, back to 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. And that takes around 90 to 110 minutes. Now, what happens is that can be disrupted. So there's factors that can disrupt getting to 4, caffeine being one of them, because it's stimulating heart rate and blood pressure increase. When you're in your deepest sleep, they go the other way. So if you're having caffeine before bed for some individuals that are receptive to it, you're probably going to disrupt getting to 4, and you won't feel as rested from your sleep. What you've also got is stress. So is the best moment to argue with your partner just before bed? Probably not, because it will affect your sleep. And then you can look at other things like alcohol and other substances, tobacco, etc. They're going to have an implication on your body because they are poison in some way. So all of that can prevent you getting to 4. So what people need to look at is, how can I get the most out of my sleep? How many cycles do I need? And when, where am I going to get this from? So try and get at least 4 would be the best advice. And you can work out, okay, if my sleep's optimum, that's at least 6 hours sleep. So there's your quantity. And you just ensure the quality, and that will allow you to get the most out of it. But also set your hormones for the next day. That cortisol in the morning, your what's called your ghrelin and your leptin. So ghrelin's your hunger hormone, leptin's the inhibitor of hunger. They can fall out of whack as well with a poor night's sleep. So once you get all that going with just your sleep, everything just fits. You feel better. You feel more rested. You feel ready to exercise. You feel ready for your day, and you feel like a more competent individual. It all comes back to sleep.
So what would you say the optimal time, in your opinion, for getting that coffee? Like for me, I wake up, bam, straight down, coffee. Is there like, should you wait a longer period, or?
It's all individual. I'd say work out the days when you're slumping. So mid-morning and mid-afternoon are two typical slumps with blood plasma cortisol levels. As I said, it's an energizing hormone. That's when your energy is naturally coming down. So if you want to tail it off a bit and not have too much of a divot, I would say put off the morning coffee a little bit. So say let's say you wake up at 6, give it a couple of hours, then maybe look at having a coffee. If you're in the mid-afternoon, as long as you're not too receptive to caffeine and it's going to keep you up at night, then a mid-afternoon 2, 3, something like that, maybe an espresso, something a bit smaller, you're going to tail off that divot a little bit more, and you'll feel a bit more naturally energized from it.
What does your morning routine look like to get ready for the day?
It's pretty straightforward, but it depends on time zones I'm working with. So if I'm working with an Asian time zone, I'm going to need to be up earlier. So there will be days I wake up at 4:30. It's not ideal. The sun is definitely not up. I would still try and stay to the same thing. I just assume that my cortisol circadian rhythm shifted a little bit with me waking up. So I'd still wake. Let's say I woke up at 4. I'd have a coffee at 6, maybe another one at 8. Depending on the day, maybe another one at 9. Depends on social settings as well. And then that morning, I generally will stay fasted. I get quite a benefit myself from fasting with mental clarity. So I could, whether it's waking up at 4, waking up at 6, waking up at 8, I generally not having my first meal till 11:30 at the earliest. And I found great benefit from that. It's not something I've always done, but it's something I try and maintain going forward, because I find the mental clarity is there. I feel more focused, I feel more driven, and I don't have any negatives from calorie intake. So I can just time my calories a little bit later in the day, and nothing bad happens. I feel all right. I feel good. That's general routine.
I say we're talking outside about it, like how like we both feel mentally like our heads clear fasting in the morning and having a meal later in the day. I don't know if you've tried sort of fasted training in the evening. That just doesn't work for me. It's just, I'm lethargic. It's horrible.
Yeah, let's say I'm training legs at 6 p.m, I'm eating. I need some calories. It's just not happening. Whereas if I was to train, say, legs in the morning fasted, I've got a bit more like oomph, like a bit more aggression, I find. The weights probably won't go up the same, but I feel like I'm getting through that session and it's feeling good. So if I want the max strength benefit, I'm probably training in the evening when my body's a bit warmer. I've had a chance to get calories on board. But yeah, the fasted training, if you're doing it in the evening, it's just so tough. I've referenced legs, but if you're going for a long cardio session, like you need some fuel in the tank, don't you? It's just otherwise it's not happening.
It is horrible. It is horrible. And then go back, sort of moving on, should I say? You travel to a lot of countries, and that is a slight sort of shift in your career, wasn't it, to go into more internationally public speaking? So how did that transition come about? So obviously you were a practicing clinician and then transition into speaking in front of hundreds of people.
Yeah, so it came as from being a clinician, so being able to speak on certain topics. So it come from interest from certain clientele, and it built out from there. When I was still in private medical practice, the company I was working for at the time, it just they go to clientele now and again and deliver a talk, offer some services, that sort of thing. So it's like an advertisement piece. And I think I must have been 3-4 months into clinical practice, fully qualified, and an email goes around, oh, we need someone to do this. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Cool. Take the opportunity. The last time I spoke in front of a large group of people before that was university presentation, where you're all hungover. You've just put this presentation together, and then you talk to your peers who are also hungover, and everyone claps. You're like, oh, we got through it. Let's go to the pub. That's basically what the uni presentation was like. And then coming into the corporate world, I was just like, that's a bit different. I need to really, learn a bit. But it was a baptism of fire. So I'd done a few events where I'm there to talk about services. That was my first, back and forth with people, maybe 10 people listening while I'm talking a bit. One-on-ones with some people, so it's a bit more informal. The first one was to 3,000 people in a big warehouse expo event, to which I thought it was just going to be like 20. So I was really put in the deep end. It was when I arrived, they're like, yeah, shirt, trousers, suit, don't need to wear a tie. I was still learning. I didn't know how to dress for that sort of occasion. Then it was, right, we're going backstage, we'll mic you up. Mic me up? What? Why? And it's like, oh, that stage is massive. Cool. And it wasn't my own slides I was presenting, so I'd only seen them that week, so I hadn't had the chance to put them together. I was like, okay, I'm breathing a bit quicker. I'm sweating a lot. I shouldn't have had 4 coffees. This is not feeling good. And then, I went through with it. I was happy with how it went. I had some good Q&A, some good engagement. But on reflection, I was like, could people see the sweat? Could they? Yeah, I was sweating on stage. Yeah. How does that go? And I started to analyze it a little bit more, like back to Epictetus. What am I in control of? I was like, okay, I can control the caffeine. That's that. I slept terribly because I was nervous. Okay, maybe I can control that in the future. What can I do to relax before bed? Okay, I wasn't well hydrated because of the sheer amount of caffeine. I don't remember drinking any water that morning. So I started to pick it apart a bit and go, right, how can I improve and get better once that those occurrences come up again? And it was from there. Apparently it went really well, and the private medical center I was working for the time got really glittering great feedback. So I became the guy. Oh, Matt, can you go and present to this client? And then I did it. I was like, can you present to this client? Okay, I did it. And it was varying sizes, so whether it be 50, 100, whatever it may be. Generally topics would be like sleep, as I was just speaking about, mental health, corporate well-being, service-driven approaches to improving well-being and reducing people's absence from work, things like that. And then when I moved to like other companies, other contracts, then it just exploded. I went from that was maybe delivering once in a blue moon, maybe once a month, every other month, something like that, to I think my record is 68 in a year, public speaking sessions. So I had a well exercised vocal cord by that stage, and I really, really enjoyed it, really flourished, and want to put messages across to help other people, and maybe some of the mistakes I've made along the way. I never had a mentor, I never had guidance. I was just told, can you do this, can you do that? Oh, yeah. I know there'll be people in the world that, should that same moment come up for them, they might not handle it, albeit in my stride, they may not handle it as well. They may crumble under pressure. They may get overly nervous and suffer some mental health conditions as a result. That pressure performance curve, they might go too far and then suddenly performance is down and they blame themselves. So I would want to be there to just, even if it's just a quick chat or something, just to help people, be that mentor, whether it be in the online space, in the real world, just to guide you through the process of, okay, how do we do this?
Yeah.
How do I take my first steps in this particular industry? So, yeah.
What would be your best piece of advice to someone who is literally just about to go into what you went into in front of 3,000 people?
It would be the sleep. Absolutely.
Sleep.
Yeah. If you're waking up feeling groggy, run down, tired, if you literally say out loud, oh, I've only had 4 hours sleep, you've already lost. It's all in your head already. So you'll start to analyze on stage while you're speaking rather than speaking on stage.
Yeah.
So when you're just analyzing, going through it, you're not really concentrating on what you're saying. So the body language, the facial expressions, it all becomes a bit robotic because you're just trying to remember a script almost. And you're being so sidetracked by like, oh, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing that wrong. What do they think? What are they doing? That person frowned at me. And you start to focus on the wrong stuff and you can't bring it back to controllable factors. And that does all come back to how do you start that morning of the day? Like whether you're presenting at 4 p.m., 11 a.m., whatever it may be, when you wake up, you know if it's on. You know if you're like, I'm feeling good. Like that's public speaking, but say if you had a powerlifting competition, you wake up and you're like, yeah, I got this. I'm feeling good, feeling confident. So I definitely think sleep is the best thing to sort out if you're going to speak on stage, if you're going to speak online, whatever it may be, sleep.
So once you get on the stage, a lot of people, I think including myself, would wonder, where do I look? Where do I stand? How do I stand? Like what, in your opinion, would be the best starter to get into?
I'd say know your audience is a big one, but also know your environment. So if you have an opportunity to check out the venue beforehand, make sure you do. If you have an opportunity to ask more questions to the organizer, make sure you do. If you working out pitch and tonality for who your audience is, if you don't know who they are, how are you doing it? You're going to work out pitch and tonality for, let's say, people that just graduated, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to present to you. And then you get there and everyone's mid-50s, senior management of different companies. You're going to not convey the right message to them. So find out your audience, find out your environment, check it out as well. And that will give you the best bet of, okay, I'm going to come across the right way. And then you can start to focus less on it because you know the whole environment around you that's going to help.
Because I've seen like power poses, as it were, of like where you have your hands when you talk. And do you find that makes like a difference to speaking? Or do you think it's more of like a placebo and you believe it's given?
I think the latter is certainly a factor to consider. Power pose, you stand like that, like you're Superman about to fly off. But it does make a difference because what it'll do, it help you pin your shoulders back. You'll feel taller, more confident. Your chin will be up a little bit more. And that respect will come from the audience to you and you'll feel it. It's like an energy. If you're disheveled, hunched over like that, the audience will pick up on that energy and suddenly the trust barrier, if you're an expert, subject matter expert in what you're speaking about, it's less believable if you're not a confident individual. So yeah, things like power pose can help. I would focus on more your lifestyle, do some back training, do plenty of rows, pin the shoulders back a bit more, chin up, get yourself feeling confident. And then there's the self-talk aspect. Like there's nothing wrong with, I'm a man, right? There's nothing wrong with believing you are the man. There's nothing wrong with thinking, I've got this. I'm going to handle it. Whatever comes my way, I've got the answers. I know what I'm talking about. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think we live in a society now where suddenly that's the wrong thing to do. You need to get support. Sometimes there's no one there but yourself. When you get on stage, it's a lonely place, I can tell you that. It's just you. And if you were telling yourself a bad story beforehand, it ain't going to go well. So positive self-talk is a huge thing for public speakers. I can guarantee whether it be Tony Robbins, Jordan Peterson, whoever gets on stage, they believe they're the man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I believe that you can have that in every aspect of your life, whatever you're doing. It's this confidence. You notice if someone walks into a room and they are like, they think they're the top dog, you feel that when they walk into the room, like how they hold themselves and all of that. And if you come across someone who's a bit nervous, you can pick up on it really quick. And that's what I found. And obviously you deal with helping people overcome like anxiety and stuff like that. What would be your sort of best advice for people suffering with sort of severe anxiety, should I say?
I think it's a lot with clinical questions. It is case by case. It depends on life experience, their position. But if I was to give generalized advice, I would say your network is your net worth in terms of your mental health. So if you're constantly around people that moan, you're going to moan. If you're constantly around people that, you know, are so engrossed with like whatever's on the news and it's just negative, suddenly you're going to start to think negatively. So I do think just, it's a hard thing for some people to do, is being able to say that person in my life right now is not right for me. The same way you do it with a relationship. You can have that honest discussion with yourself and go, this isn't working out. I think people need to apply that to other aspects of their life. So we've all heard the term, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's absolutely correct. But it doesn't need to be you only talk to 5 people. But then think about it, okay, I want to overcome anxiety. Can I have 5 people in my life that are pretty confident or have gone through similar things? So some vicarious experiences to bring you to the targets and the goals you want to achieve. Where am I going to find those people? Okay, I've been going to pubs for years and just speaking to people that seem pretty down, drinking booze, not feeling good, talking about the news, talking about how bad the world is. Why don't I go to another venue with friends that are like-minded? And suddenly you'll meet people that uplift you, make you think better, or make you think more positively. So I think your environment is going to be huge. The people you spend time with, whether it be work, relationships, friends, family, even to extreme cases, you know, control that. That's a controllable factor. You don't have to spend time with people that are bringing you down or altering your mindset to think like them, because that's some of your 5 people. It's powerful and it's absolutely true. That's definitely the best advice I can give, is get a network around you that's supportive to what you're trying to achieve. And if that's to overcome nervousness, anxiety, things like that, that is going to make a huge difference to your life.
100%. I think as well, when COVID happened and lockdown happened, everyone was just kind of bam, shut off. And obviously with you speaking all around the world, suddenly not being able to travel, how did that affect your sort of work life?
Yeah, so I went from, whether it be on a stage, 400 people, or to more closer knit, 20 people in depth sessions, to using my busted 13-year-old laptop at home, trying to download Zoom and struggling because it's so old, and then finally getting on and I'm presenting to, let's say, 100 people, and every single person's camera is off. It was weird. I was just like, okay, so I have these certain moments. It's kind of like you tell a natural joke, it just flows, and you might get like a couple of chuckles in the audience. Nothing. Same joke, same kind of audience. Everyone's on mute. All the cameras are off. So I had to really adapt like natural humor, natural engagement with audiences to be a bit more dictatorship style, presenting this topic. Any questions? So it did have to shift to a more, I'm giving you information, we can both agree without, you know, drawing a mental contract between each other that this is just how it is. I'm giving you information, you're taking information. Cameras are off, everyone's muted. I'm not going to hear from you until the last 5-10 minutes. Whereas before, people might interject. I see people smiling. When I nod, people nod. So compliance, I can see the pointers registering. I can't see any of that. So it just had to shift and change. And it was a new skill set to learn for me as well, because, yeah, there was some online presentations. So if I'm presenting to just another European city's office or something like that, there'll be some online stuff, but it was less frequent. And then, yeah, during that early part of 3 years ago, it was like, this was a bit odd. It was a bit different. So large adjustment for me, definitely.
You find it sort of like, now you went through that, it's almost like an additional skill set.
For sure.
Being able to speak online about even knowing anyone's there. And so like I speak to people on the podcast, like I was speaking to you, and like I know there's people watching, and that's, for me, that's like normal now.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I wonder if I can take this over and try it on Twitch and stream it.
Yeah.
The first one I did, I was so anxious about what was going on. I was like, "This is all new." I was like, because you're just looking at yourself on the screen,
Yeah.
and that is it. And there's people there, you can't see them, and it's a weird experience.
Yeah.
The first time.
I guess, yeah, I've maybe spoken some of the negatives of it, but there was a lot of positives that came. So it's how can you inject natural humor that you're just going to do it anyway, regardless if people laugh? How do you put your personality across more? So where it became robotic at the start, it evolved and the personality comes through. So, yeah, it is a strange thing to overcome. And the thing I found the easiest to overcome is just to make me as big as possible on screen, just so I can be conscious of me. So it's like I'm always having a conversation with myself. Like I can put across the right facial expressions, use my hands a little bit more, make it engaging. Whereas before I definitely was concentrating on all those blank screens like that. I was like, okay, I don't know how I was like, why? If I'm the only one on the screen, why don't I just put me big and I can concentrate on me a little bit more? And if I was watching this, how would it be more engaging? So yeah, learning development there. It's definitely something to it.
Yeah, I always found with me, I had like quite a bad stutter.
Okay.
And then when I got anxious or nervous says I had to speak to more than like one person, or even on the podcast as well, it's just your breakdown in communication, like clearly, it just crumbles. And especially I used to find I used a lot of filler words.
Okay.
And I always used to be like, and like, and it's not until you watch something back and you realize how many times you say that subconsciously. I don't know if you ever had that with your first experiences with public speaking. Like, did you use like a lot of fillers?
Just do them on there on purpose. It's literally what I just done there, and ahs. And when I first started, it was a case of how do I slow down and pause, breathe, reflect, then I can go forward with it. But yeah, at first there was a lot of like that sounds almost. They're not complete words. They're just like that.
Yeah.
So that it's continuing a sentence, and it's almost like you're afraid to stop speaking. There's nothing wrong with it. When you watch some of the world's best speakers, you'll see that they're not afraid to pause, and they can actually use it to their benefit. So I really benefited from watching others, watching historical figures' speeches, watching politicians is a good one to watch because it's their job essentially is to public speak. So, gather people, get them on side, get them to, vote a certain way or for certain policies. So once you start watching other figures and you've got your self-reflection, watch us back, but can you implement some strategy from maybe others that have benefited or people similar to you, similar mindset, that sort of thing. So yeah, there was definitely the fillers, and how I overcame it was practice, watching yourself back, and then watching other people. Those are three key things for me.
Who would you say you look up to most at the moment, or like, do you have like a role model who like that is where I want to be?
How do I answer this? I think there's many. I think you've got the power, passion people, Goggins, Jordan Peterson, people like that. They know their stuff in their field. So if I call Goggins' field health and mindset, Peterson psychology, they're two examples of they're incredibly passionate about their field and can really convey a message and put it across. So I'd say currently they're two excellent ones for anyone that wants to improve public speaking to have a look at. The clarity of their voice, the vocabulary they use in their field makes a difference. Then you've got the historical figures. I won't name them out loud, but pay attention to recordings from World War II. Whatever side, Axis, Allies, whoever, watch some of their speeches, regardless of language, and you will find some of the most influential speeches of all time happened in that 20-year period. The build up to the war and how people rose to power during the war, how people got people up for it, kind of thing, united the home front, that sort of thing. So you'll find historical figures like that. Yes, we're not going to war, or we're not rationing or trying to bring morale up of a country, but the messaging's still there to convey a message, to influence, and you can pick apart some of the more ancient stuff there. Then you've got America, the beast that it is. Their political races are so much more, cameras and lights on than any other country, and it's so much money invested to get them on TV, on a podium in front of others and debate. I think watching some of that, watching rallies and things like that of previous presidential candidates and previous presidents, you can actually learn a lot from. Whether you're trying to talk about mental health, whether you're trying to talk about exercise, mindset, whatever it is, they're good examples of body language, facial expressions, how to pause properly when you're speaking, the lack of filler words. You can really push forward with it. And then you've got the more boring financial declarations from like governors of Bank of England, things like that. But it's such an important message usually they're delivering if they are speaking to the public, that you can take something away from them. So I think, yeah, there's figures that I like, Peterson, Goggins, people like that, but then it's a broad spectrum of people.
Yeah.
World War II leaders to Donald Trump to Barack Obama, whoever, Mark Carney, Bank of England or ex-Bank of England governor. There's some really good speakers, and it's being objective and saying, don't care about their policies, don't care about their politics, their vision on world economics or World War II. I'm just looking objectively. What made them a good speaker? Take all that away and it will definitely help you.
Yeah, I find it, especially with figures that are very influential, especially for the younger people who are watching, I find it leaves such a big indent on their lifestyle. Like, I grew up with, I don't know if you know who Eric Thomas is, E.T., the hip hop preacher.
Okay, yeah.
In America, wicked guy. He's like homeless and became like one of the best motivational speakers in the world.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, no, he's wicked. And Tony Robbins, Goggins. Like, I love Goggins. And I actually met Goggins, I think it was last year.
Okay.
I was so nervous meeting this guy because I'd like looked up to him for years, and I was like in the queue to meet him. I was like sweating. I was just like, right,
Here's the moment.
here it is. I got to try and say something about mumbling. I did it somehow. I have no idea how. And it was great. But people like that, for me, it left a bigger impression on me. Whereas now, if the same people come in, it's a little bit different because you're analysing more. You're not as impressionable. But I find you learn more, but you're not taking in their personality as when you're younger. But yeah, no, that's what I like, is how influential like yourself can be. I can be to younger people. That's what I like about all of it, really, and that's the reason of the podcast.
Yeah, I think young people are in a very strange crossroads at the moment because we've gone so technologically advanced that they're losing the social side of things, they're losing the social skills, and I especially see it in young men. And for me, whether it be me as a physiologist, me as a public speaker, me as an individual who likes to socialize, I'm seeing a whole host of problems on the way, and it's going to affect everyone. It's going to be, well, going through it now where, eye contact, for example, with the young people is becoming non-existent.
Yeah, you imagine they've gone through school and then lockdown happened. They had like 2 years pretty much of no school, and they're on a computer. And especially now with younger men, there's like a problem with testosterone not being as high as what it used to be, and it's
scary.
Yeah.
Like there's stats of like 20-year-old men now walking around with 60-year-old man testosterone from just 30 years ago. Like, what? Like, that is so alarming for society. It is ridiculous, because since the dawn of time, test levels have been a certain level, and now they're not. If this was everyone's blood glucose levels, we'd have been so worried about the excess need for treating diabetics. It's not going great in Western countries for things like diabetes and obesity and things like that, granted. But if it was at a level where basically everyone's going to be diagnosed, it would be a serious problem. Testosterone, that's happening. It's going lower and lower and lower at such a young age that what are we going to do as a society? It's you need men with the testosterone they should do.
Yeah, and it's not really talked about much either.
No.
It's quite, you'll find it, but you've got to be following like a certain niche to get hold of that information. It's not like widespread, like, the testosterone levels are low in men. It is crazy. What would you say would be generally like a really good thing to boost testosterone?
Sleep. I'll
Sleep.
keep going back to it.
Just sleep.
That's one thing. I'll get onto some others, but the reason sleep is during sleep you have secretion of human growth hormone, so that's you're going to get bigger and stronger from it, and if you're having that go through the body, you're going to train more, you're going to be more likely to be physically active, which is one of the tenets of testosterone, is to get out there into the world, take on adversity. It doesn't have to be lifting weights. It could be a comedian taking on adversity of hecklers. You've got the test to be like, oh, I'm going to deal with this. I'm the man kind of thing. So I think your sleep, being able to secrete human growth hormone properly, manage other hormones such as hunger hormones, you're less likely to crave refined carbohydrates, high fat food, high reward food, which are all things known to reduce testosterone. So if you're eating rubbish all the time, you're not going to have great test. It's just, there's a correlation between them. More junk food equals less test. So the diet comes into it, but it can be as a result of sleep, because your body just needs quick energy because you haven't regenerated properly overnight. So sleep, diet, again, mindset will come into it. Who are you around? Are you around individuals that it's just negative, and you can't snap out of it? So suddenly, okay, yeah, things are bad. It's awful. I'm not feeling great. Suddenly, they're bringing you down, literally physically. So it's how do you break free of that? So environment be another thing. So sleep, lifestyle, primarily diet. Do exercise. It's going to, get things going. I always say this, whether it's a myth, it's not something I've looked into, that deadlifts increase test by 100% for the day. I think any gym bros heard that at some point, but there's definitely something to it. When you do a good deadlift, you're like, you feel it. You're just like, yes.
Yeah.
So exercising, doing the things that men are supposed to do, that's one of the last things to do.
Do you find being in a competitive environment normally is filled with more testosterone high guys?
There's a benefit to it. I think competition is super healthy for men. I'll concentrate on men because we're talking about tests, but it can be beneficial to women as well. But definitely through competition, overcoming adversity, whether it be boxing, sport, shaking someone's hand and go, yeah, you won today, then analysing, how do I improve? I'm going to go back and beat him. That competition is healthy. I think when we remove that and start giving out participation trophies, oh yeah, everyone's a winner, it takes away that competitive edge. And if you keep relaying that message over and over and over, suddenly you get into adult life and there's a tantrum from a grown man. And you're like, what? Just be competitive and, overcome it. But it's not going that way.
No. I mean, so I kickbox, and when we spar, you're not aiming to knock them out. Yeah. You're honing your skills and you're getting better, but they're getting better, and you're learning off of each other. And at the end, nice session. Like everyone's chilled out. But I always find, especially with people that train martial arts in a competitive environment, are incredibly calm in the outside world. I'll say there's maybe a small 1% which aren't.
Yeah, there's something in the brain that's like, I need to hurt people.
Yeah, but you're going to get that whichever field. There is always going to be a tiny 100% of those individuals which don't fit the normal percentage. But yeah, I just find, especially for me, I struggled with a lot of anger issues younger. Honestly, learn a martial art if you want to bring that under control. I went to the gym first, and then you just get angry lifting weights, which is kind of good if you want to get big, but then it doesn't really solve the problem of you're still angry. Yeah. But the discipline and the community of learning a martial art is almost like therapy, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd say I'm sure most people have had these situations, go to the biggest guy in the gym. He's probably the nicest, most helpful guy in the gym. He'll actually be like, oh, you see me as an inspirational figure? Sure, I'll help you. You go to the black belt in a dojo, they'll be helpful. They'll help you out. So it's I think once people get past that and think, oh, they're dangerous, or they're the most intimidating one, of going, okay, this is the person to learn from. It's a mutual thing. They're going to learn from teaching you. You're going to learn from the teacher. So whether it be martial arts, deadlifting, training in the gym, whatever it is you can get so much to benefit from others, and it's like you said, competitive environment of like, he's a black belt, I want to be a black belt. How do I become a black belt? I'll ask the black belt. Same thing in the gym, same thing at anything in life.
Yeah.
Then it's like, don't be afraid to communicate that.
I think a lot of people overlook that fact when we go back to sort of the start of the conversation, where you get on high performers like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Everyone sees what they are now and they're like, yeah, I couldn't handle that stress, but no one sees them at the beginning. And then that whole period in between, that's built them up to that point.
Yeah, it's like, I referenced it earlier. I think the most I'd done was I think it was actually 80. I forgot about 12. Just randomly I'd done. If you'd have said to me, Matt, you've just finished your clinical training, you're going to deliver 80 public speaking sessions this calendar year, I would be bricking it. You can't just go to that level. It's a case of progression along the way, that progressive overload. Those that train in the gym, they'll learn progressive overload and apply it into other aspects of life. So yeah, exactly as you say, Bill Gates, Musk, whoever, it's been a progressive overload. They haven't just jumped in the deep end. They might have jumped in the deep end to deal with a certain obstacle, but the current thing they're at now and all the pressure that comes with it is built and built and built and built and built, definitely.
Because now you, as well as the public speaking you do in your field, you also do a lot with mental health as well, isn't it? The past, was it 6 years or so?
Yeah, so about 6 years I've been delivering talks on public mental health, but primarily looking at general public for that.
And what would you say, generally speaking, other than large amounts of stress, is sort of bringing people's mental health down opposed to up?
What brings people's mental health down is, if you look at it generally, is it will come down to their own self-analysis of situations. It will be that heightened sense of lack of control. So once you can begin to flip it, that they do have some control of certain situations, certain aspects of their life, then they can figure out these little goals they can make along the way. Like, let's say it's someone who's never exercised before or tried it as a mechanism to help their mental health, and they begin. Start slow. Just start by going for a walk. Start by getting the stairs instead of a lift. It's all these little journeys and these little wins. You now get the stairs instead of the lift at work. That's a win. You get off a stop early to the office. You walk. That's a win. You got a dog. That's a win because you can walk a dog now. You've just joined a gym after implementing that after a month. You don't need to go every day. Maybe just start with once a week, half an hour workout. That's a win. And you just create a mindset of winning, of things that you're in control of. That's definitely something that helps lift people out of, maybe if they find themselves digging into their own mindset, into the negatives. Well, you can also dig into the positives and start winning. And what it is between two things called languishing and flourishing. So languishing, or a languishing individual, will see the negatives in the negatives, but also the negatives in the positives. And it's something to look out for with close friends and family, of how they're feeling. If you give them a compliment and you're just saying that. If they're quite negative about it, generally there's a bit of languishing going on internally. On the flip side, you want to get people towards flourishing, that upward spiral. They see the positives in the positives, but also the positives in the negatives. And that can come through things like competitive nature, overcoming adversity, finding things that they want to benefit their life, that they're in control of. You'll start to flourish a little bit more. So it's about that balance between languishing and flourishing. And it's those baby steps along the way that will make all the difference. You win, and you can make a real difference. It comes back to a theory called learned helplessness. So this was I've actually done this to 150 people before. I'm giving it away here, but I'm going to anyway. People can look it up after. So a room of people. It was originally done in a lecture theatre at a university. I can't remember the university or the lady's name, but that was that. You've got, let's say, 150 people. Everyone's got a sheet of paper in front of them, says, don't turn over yet. So what the person on stage gets them to do is, I'm going to get you to turn over the bit of paper, and I want you to unscramble the first word that's mumbo jumbo, made up word. Unscramble it into a new word. Once you've done that, raise your hand. Then you move on to the next one. Unscramble the next word. Once you've done that, hand up. Then the last word, unscramble it and stand up. So what happened was, they're like, right, it's time to go. Flip the papers over, unscramble the first word. You see all these hands on the right-hand side go up. Okay. and then you put the language out there. Okay, guys on the left, look, if you're not good enough, if you don't feel you can do it, we'll get you to move on shortly. You guys have done excellent. Move on to the next one. And they're like, all right, I'll move on to the next one. They're like, yes, move on to the next one. All right, let's go again. Next one. Hands go up, hands go up, hands go up. Frustration, frustration, frustration. Okay, everyone in the room, look, if you haven't done it, the second one, don't worry. Move on to the third one, everyone. You start to see people stand up on this side. Still no one standing up this side. And then the lecturer would reveal, like, everyone stop what you're doing, and they'll pick 2 people each side, and they'll go, what was your first word? Tab. All right, so tab to bat, quite easy. Their word, you can't unscramble it. It's impossible. What's your second word? Melon. Okay, that could be lemon. Easy to unscramble. What was your second word? Can't do it. It's impossible. What was your third word? And it unscrambles. I think it's Cinerama, and it unscrambles to American. What was your third word? Cinerama. Why couldn't they do it? It was the fail. Oh, I'm going to fail. This lot, success, success, success. The first 2 are different for both sets of people. The last one is exactly the same, and they're the same demographic of people. This lot all succeeded, and the third one, not a single person stood up. So it just goes to show how the mindset can make such a huge difference. So once you have that failure, tell yourself some success, find a way to learn, and that way you'll start to flourish again, rather than letting yourself languish. So the theory of learned helplessness, that's something to look into.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. That is, real interesting.
I've done it on stage to 150 people. I was so nervous implementing it myself. I was like, if this bombs, I look like such an idiot. But it actually genuinely worked. It was crazy. And I was blown away because I was like, this is the same group of people. Like, I've just split them in half. Like,
yeah.
Why couldn't they do it? And
crazy.
All up there.
Again, it's environment is everything. Like who you're around. And I find, especially if there's people which are bad for you and they are close to you or family, it is so hard to then, if it's like a friend, relatively easy, but like, yeah, when you get into the close circle you've always been with, that I can see why a lot of people get stuck. It's very easy to, a lot of people, I think nowadays a lot of people are afraid of hurting people's feelings.
Yeah.
Even if them being around is really shit for you. They're like, we'll just stay in the shit, not to hurt their feelings.
It's tough. And I think especially with like the people you've grown up with or family, you know, don't be a dick about it. Don't be like, I'm not talking to you now because you're a negative person. Go away. I think it's more like just start to distance a little bit naturally. So it's like maybe where you've noticed you've been texting loads, just stop texting. If you don't hear back, that tells you everything you need to know. If you don't hear back as much and things just naturally drift, you can do it in a natural sense where, you know, if you saw them down the pub, you'll still say hello, you'll still be friendly, but you're not going out your way to involve this person in the close aspects of your life. You can start to dissipate that a little bit.
I think finally, what would be your best, I'll say best, what would be the piece of advice you would give to, I'm going to go with young men because we've been kind of on that topic, who feel a little bit lost in the current world, or feel a little bit down, they don't really know what to do. What advice would you give them?
Sleep properly. That's definitely the first one. Sleep properly. Have a good controlled lifestyle. You know, I'm not saying be a monk and everything has to be completely controlled. Maybe an 80-20. Like if you go out on the weekend, you go out on the weekend, but don't make a habit of it. Control your environment. So do what is going to help you and help you become a flourishing individual. Find aspirational figures that actually benefit you and begin to reduce the amount of mainstream media content that you consume. Actively pick the content you consume. Because when you turn on the news, it's already selected for you. You've got a whole bunch of channels you can pick. You've got a YouTube, you've got friends you can talk to. Control that, and that will allow you to pick your own mindset. And I guess lastly is get out there into the world, whether it's be exercise, travel, adventures, that old, certainly as Brits, that old British spirit of adventure and getting out there. You're going to have some stories to tell. You're going to do stuff with your life. And that's part of a tenet of a man is being able to tell some stories around the campfire and inspire others and be inspired yourself. It's that camaraderie to build yourself up and build those around you up. And the last thing is just general protection is don't be afraid to be a man. Tell yourself you're the man. And if it's something that's hard and you don't think you can do it anyway.
Perfect. Matthew J. Flynn, thank you very much.
Thank you.